Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel for another video tutorial for this Suri Breeze sweater. This is a Tunisian crochet sweater and I hope you will enjoy it because it's really fun to make and really easy. So let's get started. Here are the materials that you will need. I used the Suri Alpaca from Long Yarns, and for size extra small I needed about 9 balls of yarn, but you can use some other type of yarn. Here is a swatch that I made with merino and with DK, because maybe this will be easier for you to find. Now we will start with the back panel, and to work the back panel you will need to start with the number of stitches required for your size. I will just chain 56. You'll need a cable Tunisian crochet hook because we will work a pretty wide back panel. Now let me show you on the other yarn how you need to work this Tunisian knit stitch, because it will be easier. So first you can insert the hook into the back bump of back loop of the chain, yarn over and draw out a loop, and you'll continue like this with all the stitches that you have. On that fuzzy yarn it's a bit difficult to see exactly the stitches. That's why I wanted to show you on a little swatch that is in a little lighter and a different yarn. Every row in Tunisian crochet has a forward pass and a return pass, so these two are creating a row. To make the return pass, you'll yarn over and pass through the first loop, and then yarn over and pass through 2 loops, and this you will continue pass through 2 until the end of the row. Now to work the Tunisian knitting stitch, you don't need to insert the hook behind that bar that forms the first stitch, but you need to go with the hook through the back, so all the way through the back of this stitch, and then yarn over and pull out a loop. So again I'm going through the back of the stitch. You can see that it is a small loop over there, and one leg is in front and one leg is a bit in the back. So you need to insert the hook right through those 2 loops or 2 bars and yarn over and draw out a loop. For the end of the row, don't forget to work the last stitch, and you'll need to go with the hook through both loops like this, and then the return pass, so yarn over, pull through 1 and then through 2, through 2, through 2 to the end of the row. So this is the Tunisian knit stitch, and this is what we will be using for our Suri Breeze sweater. So now again, once you finished your row, don't forget not to miss that first stitch that is over there. So again, go with the crochet hook all the way through the back of your work. And this is how you have to work the Tunisian knitting stitch. As you can see, it's kind of creating the same pattern as knitting the stockinette stitch, and it's pretty nice. One more time, we will be using a way bigger crochet hook than the size that is recommended, and this is because I like how the fabric looks after working with a bigger crochet hook. Now back to our sweater. So I chain 56 stitches, And now on my yarn is a bit difficult to find those back loops of my chain, so I'm just going with my hook through the chain stitches and then yarn over and draw out a loop. If you want to look over those back loops, then it's perfect, because in this way your edge will be showing the chain stitches, and when you'll be working the ribbing, it will be easier to work the ribbing pattern. Now we are going with the forward pass and going yarn over, pull through two until we finish the row. Now if you want to choose a different yarn and you don't know which size the hook to be, then as a suggestion, if your work is curling pretty bad, then I will suggest to size up the crochet hook. It will still curl a little bit at the edge, but if it's too much and with every row it is curling, then I realized that the tension is problem. The Tunisian crochet hook, Tunisian crochet technique gives a pretty dense fabric, so that is why it is like this and curling. So it's a good idea to start and switch to a bigger size. In the written pattern you will find information about how to adjust the pattern. So if you're having a different yarn, different crochet hook size and different gauge, of course, you will be able to adjust the pattern according to all these variables. I don't know if it's a right word in English, but yes. So now I'm continuing to work in the same manner as I showed you on the light yarn. So going with the hook from front all the way through the back and working the Tunisian knit stitch. And this is the forward pass, and one row in Tunisian crochet means a forward pass and a return pass. So now we will continue to work like this until we will finish the back panel, until we have the desired length, because maybe you want to work more or less rows than I did. So for the for this back panel, for this sweater, I worked in total 64 rows. One tip: at the beginning of the row, the last loop, the first loop, last or first loop that we have, pull the yarn to make that loop tighter, because if it's tighter, then the edge that we have in the right will be nice and even, and without being too loose. So now let's just continue to work for the length of the back panel. This is how it's looking so far. Don't forget about that last stitch. On this yarn is pretty difficult to see, but imagine that you're going with the hook into a chain, into a foundation chain, and you want to grab not only one of the loops but two. It is important to grab two loops to have a nice and even edge. And again, for return pass, first you're yarn over and pulling only on through the first loop, and then through two until you finish the row. So depending on the size and on the length that you want, you can continue and work as many rows as you wish. Now I finished 64 rows and it's time to bind off, because in Tunisian crochet, as in knitting, we need to bind off this edge. And we will begin to work the first stitch as usual. So yarn over throughout a loop, but I'm not letting it on the hook. Yarn over and pull it through the 2 loops that you have on the hook. It's the similar process as for a single crochet. So basically we are working single crochet stitches to bind off this this back panel edge, and we will continue like this to the end of the row. So I'm going with the hook like I will work a stitch, a Tunisian knitting stitch, but we are just going to finish it as a single crochet. Now don't forget the last stitch that you have. And finish this one also. Now we can cut the yarn, and with this the back panel is done. This is how it's looking. See that the edges, the bottom and the bottom edge and the top edge are still a bit curly, but it's okay to be like this. For the front panel, we will follow the same pattern as for the back panel, only that we will work with 10 rows less, because we will use those 10 rows to shape the neckline. So when you are working, if you worked for the back panel 64 rows, this means that for the front panel you will have to work 54 rows. And again, in the written pattern you will find instructions about the neckline. If you want to adjust the size, the width of the neckline, you will find instruction on how to do it. So now I'm chaining the same number of stitches as for the back panel, so 56, because I'm doing size extra small. In the description you can find the measurements for all the sizes if you want to have guidance on which size to make. So now I will divide the front panel after finishing 54 rows into shoulders and neckline width and again shoulder, and I will have 20 stitches for the shoulders and 16 stitches for the neckline. And we will start with the left shoulder. This is the first one that we are working, or the right shoulder, but being the front is the left. And we will start to work the stitches as normal, but we will stop when we have 4 stitches left to the stitch marker, because we will decrease to shape the neckline. So if you have 20 stitches, then when I have 4 stitches left, meaning I need to work only 16 stitches, and then we will decrease. I think I worked many. So now to make the decrease, we will need to work the next 2 stitches together, and I will go with the hook through both stitches, and then yarn over and pull out the loop. So easy it is. And then we will work the last 2 stitches, and now the return pass. We will have in total 10 rows to work for this shoulder, but we won't decrease at every row. we will decrease at every other row. So now this row, the row number 2 for the shoulders, will be worked in without making a decrease. So we will be working all the stitches. Where you have the decrease, make sure that you're not going into the 2 stitches. Although with the return pass it will form only 1 loop. And now we will do the return pass, and the next row, the row number 3, we will decrease again. So we will repeat the first 2 rows until we have in total 10 rows only for the shoulder, counting only the shoulder. Or if you want to count all the rows, you will need to have the same number of rows as for the back panel. So now again, this is a decrease row, and I will have to work all the stitches until I have 4 stitches left to the end of the row. And when I have 4 stitches left, I will need to work 2 stitches together. Don't forget when you're counting the stitches that last edge stitch is counting as a stitch. So 2 stitches together and then working the last 2 stitches. And now the return pass, and we will continue to work like this until we will finish with this shoulder, and then we will go to work the right shoulder, which will be mirroring this left shoulder. So the decreases, we will have to make them at the beginning of the row and not at the end. But let's finish this first shoulder first, and then we will move to the other one. Okay, it's starting to take shape. Now I finish all the 10 rows, so if I decrease with 1 stitch at every other row, this means that I need to have 15 stitches for the shoulder. And now again the binding off, because we need to finish this edge as well, the same as we did for the back panel with those single crochet stitches. Okay. This is not too difficult and not too many stitches to go through. So we have only 15 stitches left. And after we finish with this binding off, we need to move forward to the next shoulder. We will have to cut the yarn here, and I will show you right away, because we need to do something with the neckline stitches. So the neckline stitches, we will need to bind them off and then to start working on the other other shoulder. So to do that, we will rejoin the yarn into the first stitch of the neckline, the one that we marked it here. Don't worry if it will create a little gap over there. We will fix that with when working the color ribbing. So I just rejoin the yarn, making a chain, and then I will go into the same stitch and work that single crochet to bind off this neckline edge. That's why it's important to use those stitch markers, because it will make it easier for you. I have 16 stitches for the neckline, but in order not to count every time, it's easier to use the stitch markers. And we will bind off all those 16 stitches that we have for the neckline, and then we will begin to work on the other shoulder. I still have a few more stitches. And when we get to the stitch marker, we are finishing the last stitch, and now we will work the first 2 stitches. So don't forget to draw up a loop and let it on the hook. Yeah, so now I have this last stitch, and then I will need to work the next one. And because I have already 2 loops on the hook, I will work the next 2 together to make that decrease, because you know here the loop counts as a stitch, and you need to count it as a stitch. So after having that loop, after finishing the last stitch of the neckline, you have already on 1 loop on the hook, and you need to work 1 more stitch and then make the decrease. And after that, we will continue to complete this row. And we have now start to work on the other shoulder. So now again, I worked 1 stitch, and I will work all the stitches to the end of the row, because this second row is without decreasing. And we will continue to work this row, working every stitch that we have, and then the forward pass, and we will continue to repeat this 2 rows until we complete the 10 rows that we need for the other shoulder. So again, at the beginning of the row, you need to work 1 stitch. The loop that we have on the hook is counting as a stitch, and then through the next 2 to work the decrease. Now the binding off row, again with those single crochet stitches to finish with this shoulder as well. So we will go through every single stitch. And the last one. And now we can cut the yarn if you want, because this is at the edge, at where the sleeve is will be. You can leave a longer tail to use it for sewing. Now we are about to join the shoulders. So I'm using the strand of yarn that I let it after binding off and fasten off. And I'm using the ladder stitch to join the shoulders, but of course that you can use any other stitch or method that you find it easier. You can use also slip stitches if you want, or even single crochet stitches. Whatever you find it easier to use to join the shoulders, you can do it. And of course we will need to join the other shoulders in the other side also. Let me show you a bit closer. So these are the 2 stitches, and I'm going with the needle like this, and then into the other side like this. It's a really simple method and I like it. I'm using it all the time, but again, it's I know how it is to get used to a certain method and you find more comfortable to use that one. So if you're pleased with the results that you have with another method, that you will, please feel free to use it. If you're sewing with a needle, with a yarn needle, and you don't know how long the yarn to be, I always measure the yarn to be 3 times the length of the piece that I want to sew it. This is like a tip. So yeah, I'm almost to the end. I will continue doing like so until I will finish, and then of course I will need to repeat with the other shoulder. After finishing, I will just go on the back and weave in this end. And then moving forward to the next shoulder, so we can start working on the sleeves. Cutting the yarn. If you feel like the collar, the neckline is a bit too wider right now, don't worry, because we will be working a neckline ribbing, and it will look a lot more better. So these are the back and front panel on me. Now let's move forward to the sleeves. For the sleeves, we will need to mark the same number of side rows as to one side of the shoulder seam and to the other. I have for my size 28 side rows, and I will have 24 stitches. So I will work a pattern, one stitch, picking up one stitch from the next 5 side rows, and then I will skip one side row. When you're picking the stitches, try to follow the same line. You will need to go with the hook into the stitches. It will be easier to figure it out, but it's important to keep the same line. So try to not to go with one stitch in the back, because this won't create a nice straight line for your sleeve. I know that sounds a bit awkward to say it like that, but it happened to me, and in knitting also. So it's important to keep a straight line, and for that it's better not to pick up the stitches right from the edge, that last row, but one row a bit in the back, how we have positioned the piece over here. So with the second stitch, if you want, the second to last stitch, and not exactly into the last stitch. And now when you're passing the shoulder seam, make sure that you're going in the mirror. So if you finish with 4 stitches or 3 stitches up to the shoulder seam, then you'll continue with 3 stitches or 4 stitches and going further. To keep a symmetry in between these two pieces. It's nothing bad if you're going like just continuing the pattern, but I do find more logical this way to mirror the other side. So from the shoulder seam to go in the mirror with the same stitches. And this is because the pattern 5+1 won't match exactly to the shoulder seam. This is the idea. So now we will continue to pick up the stitches, and for this specific design I didn't tapered the sleeve. Of course that you can do so, and if you want you can make some decreases. Decreases will be made in the same manner as we did for the neckline. So in the same way you will have to work 2 stitches together to decrease. And I do suggest to decrease symmetrically with 1 stitch at the beginning, 1 stitch at the end of the row, and then have a few rows in between decreases. So now this is the return pass after picking up the stitches. This will count as the first row. So do count it when you want to count the rows for the length of the sleeves. It's important to count this one also. Although they are not the rows are not too high, so this won't affect, if you're not counting, this row won't affect too much the length of the sleeve. So don't worry that much about it. Now we will continue in the same manner with the same stitch pattern, the knitting Tunisian stitch, and I worked in total for the sleeve 44 rows. Pay attention when calculating the length of the sleeve that using a bigger hook with a thinner yarn, this will after blocking, this will grow, so the sleeve or sweater will grow a bit in the length. So take this into account also. After finishing the length of the sleeve, so after I finish 44 rows, we will bind off, but we will bind off using a 4mm crochet hook, a regular crochet hook. This will shrink a bit the sleeve edge, the bottom of the sleeve, and preparing it for a smaller cuff. And that is why we will be using this regular 4mm crochet hook. The binding off method for the sleeve is the same as for the back panel and front panel when we did the shoulders, so it's the same thing, only that we will be using a smaller crochet hook. After working this binding of a row with a smaller crochet hook size, I do believe that still I need a few more decreases, but it's up to you. So if you think that it's enough, then you can start working the ribbing. Well, first row of the ribbing is in double crochet. So on this row in double crochet, I did decreases at every, so working one double crochet into the next 2 stitches, 1 decrease, 2 double crochet together. But if you want, you can go with 1 double crochet into every stitch. It can work also like this. But I did want it cuff to be even smaller. So I will continue to work 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches, 1 decrease to the end of the row. Yeah, so this is how it's looking. It's getting a bit smaller. Let me do it one more time because I was a bit too low into the screen. So yarn over, not finishing the first double crochet, and then go again with a double crochet into the next, and we will finish those 2 stitches together. So to make that decrease, we will need to work 2 double crochet together. Now that we finished this decrease row, the 2 plus 1 decrease, 2 double crochet plus 1 decrease maybe won't match perfectly. You just finish the pattern wherever it is at the end of the row. And now we will begin to work the ribbing, the cuff ribbing. Chain 3 and turn, and we will work 1 front post double crochet and back post double crochet. So 1 front double crochet, 1 back post double crochet. Keep alternating the stitches until you finish the first row, and then you'll need to repeat this row following the correspondent post of the stitch on the when turning. Yeah, because most probably where you did on this row a front post, you need to work a back post on the turning row. And we will be repeating to work this ribbing pattern until the cuff has the desired width. And after that you will fasten off, and we finished with one sleeve. And after finishing one sleeve, you will need to work the second one into the same manner, and then we are ready to assemble the sweater. We just have the assembling and then the neckline ribbing and the bottom hem ribbing. So now let's just continue like this. And as soon as we finish with the sleeve, we can begin and assemble the sweater. We will we will need to join the edges, and I will start with the sleeve cuff because here is where my yarn is, and I will begin from here. And I'm measuring the yarn to be like kind of the three times the length that I need to sew. So now that I measured the yarn, I will use the needle and I will do the same. I will be using the same ladder stitch as I did when joining the shoulders. This time will be a little bit different because we will work with the side rows, but considering this stitch, this Tunisian knitting stitch, it's kind of easier. But the same thing as I did for the picking up the stitches for the sleeves, is important to it is important to keep a straight line and not to use that first or last stitch in the row, to go with a stitch a bit farther from the edge. This will create indeed a kind of a line, the seam under the sweater, on the back of the sweater, but that seam will have more structure and it will look nicer. So again, if you like to use a different joining method, then feel free to do it. Is up to you what you feel more comfortable to use. So now let's just continue to join the sweater. We will need to join both sides. So from cuff ribbing to the bottom of the sweater. And after that, we will start working on the bottom hem ribbing and neckline ribbing. Okay, now that we finish with the seaming, we are ready to go further for the neckline ribbing. I will be rejoining the yarn in one side of the neckline. And I think it will be the left to be able to start right with the back panel. And we will be using the same 4mm crochet hook, and because we don't want to shrink too much the collar ribbing, we need to make a pattern out of it. So I will be working one double crochet into the next 3 stitches and then 2 double crochet in next. So not working only one stitch into each stitch, because definitely the 4mm crochet hook is smaller and it will shrink the neckline. Of course, that if you want that because you find the neckline to be too wide, then you feel free to do it like that. I will continue working on this first row, 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches and 2 double crochet in next. And when we have the side rows from the decreases, I will keep the same pattern, 3 with 3 double crochet, and the next one into the next one I will work 2 double crochet. And after finishing this first row, we will work the ribbing pattern in front post double crochet, back post double crochet, alternating these 2 stitches, but we will work this time in the round, not like on the cuffs. So we will need to join with the slip stitches with the slip stitch at the end of the row. But first, let's finish this double crochet row, and then I will show you how to work the next row in the ribbing pattern. Okay, I finished the first row and I join with a slip stitch into the 3rd chain. And now I will begin with chain 3 and then front post and then back post, front post, back post to the end of the round. If at the end of the round you don't have an even number of stitches, feel free to either skip a stitch or to work the last 2 stitches together. The chain 3 at the beginning of the row counts as a back post double crochet, so you'll have to finish the row with a front post. If you see that you have a front post and then a back row, also 1 stitch left to finish the row, then it's better to work that last 2 stitches as 2 front post stitches together. And after finishing this row, feel free to repeat this row until you have the desired width of your neckline ribbing. I worked in total 5 rows, the same as for the cuffs. So here, as you can see, I have this back post stitch. So now I have 1 front, and then I will join into the 3rd chain. But if you have 2 stitches, then you can work them together as a single stitch. Yeah, and then we will join with a slip stitch and continue working the stitch pattern until the ribbing, the neckline ribbing has the desired width. And after finishing with the ribbing, we will go to the bottom hem ribbing, and then the sweater is almost done. Okay, we finished with the neckline ribbing. Now it's looking way more better. After blocking, if you see that this ribbing pattern is stretched too much, then you can add 1 slip stitch around, all around, to make that edge, give a bit of structure to that edge, and also to make it a bit tighter and not that loose. Now we will go further to the bottom hem ribbing. For the bottom hem ribbing, we will use the same 4mm crochet hook, but this time, if you don't mind having the bottom hem a bit smaller, a bit narrower, then you can go with 1 double crochet in every stitch. If not, if you want to keep a straight line for the bottom of the sweater, then you can go with 1 double crochet at first, because the first row will be also in double crochet stitches. First row to make it in double crochet, following the same pattern as for the neckline, with that 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then 2 double crochet into the next. So this you can adjust it according with your preferences. If you think that you don't want to make it too small, too narrow at the bottom, then it is okay to work that increase at every third stitch in order to get a little bit more stitches than the sweater circumference. And after finishing this double crochet row, of course that we will work the front post, back post, double crochet ribbing. Again, we will be working in the round, so it will be the same thing that we will need to do as for the collar. And you can work as many rows as you wish until the bottom hem ribbing has the desired width. And with this, this will be the last section of the sweater. This is how it's looking. I hope you like it. It's really nice and feels really good with this yarn that I used. But of course that it will be amazing even with a different yarn. And I am about to try it. So after that, I block the sweater, hand wash it, and using a towel to squeeze all the water. And then of course to pin it, laying down to dry. So this was it with this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.